Okay, this is going to be a install video for the MotoProCam dual system on a 2016 KTM Super Duke 1290R. I've got the seat off the bike here. This is where I'm going to store the DVR unit. And so all my home runs for the cameras and the power will be to that location. Okay, inside the box that comes with the MotoProCam dual system, I ordered mine with a 128 gig micro SD card. It supports up to that. You can order various sizes or no card from the MotoProCam folks. There's some documentation here in the box, business card for MotoProCam, some additional information about how the DVR box itself is not waterproof. Everything else about the system is, but the DVR box itself is not, so you have to think about that for where you're going to keep it or make it waterproof. There's a user's manual here that describes the programming modes for the cameras and DVR system. This is the DVR box itself. It's a fairly compact unit, and these are the inputs. There's power, 2 cameras, and then an SOS switch, which is a button to lock video or take photos, and it also, that button houses the microphone for recording audio. Okay, also in the box are a number of camera mount type accessories of the type that other action sports cameras use. There's a variety of those included. This is the power harness for the DVR box. It's a generous length of power cable with an inline fuse that's used to connect to the 12-volt power on the bike. This is the SOS button that I mentioned previously. It's got a lock button on there for taking photos or locking up video on the go. It also has the microphone included in this device with a generous length of cable also to home run back to the DVR box. Okay, also included are 2 cameras. These cameras have about 10 feet, I think, of cable attached to them, so that should be enough to run them anywhere you want on the bike from just about anywhere you want to mount the DVR box. Then there's a number of double-sided 3M type tape to connect the mounts to the bike. KTM provides 2 accessory circuits included on the bike already, so we don't have to tap into the CAN bus anywhere or provide a separate power distribution module. They have an ACC1 circuit, which is always on, and ACC2, which I pulled out here, is switched with the bike power. It comes on when the bike turns on and turns off when the bike turns off. That's what you're going to want for your camera system so that it comes on and off automatically without having to think about it. Now these KTM electrical connections terminate in a spade type connector. That's what you're going to want to terminate your wiring harness for on the DVR box. Since I've already installed my GPS here, I'm going to use PosiTap Vampire taps on these wires right here to connect power to this 10 amp circuit. Okay, I've left this kind of all twisted out and exposed so that you can see how these PosiTap Vampire connectors work. The wire from that will go to the camera system comes into the bottom, and then it's got a Vampire tap in here that you tap into existing power wire. So I'm tapping into the positive side there, and then I'm tapping into my ground wire here with another one, and so that's giving me a 10 amp 12 volt circuit that I'm sharing with the GPS for the camera system. Okay, I've got the system all powered from the bike. It uses the switched power ACC2 port that KTM generously gives you with the bike that hides in this place way down. They stuff the wiring way down under the wiring loom here, and you have to kind of fish it out to find those 2 connectors. Actually, there's 4 connectors down there, one for ACC1 and one for ACC2. I'm using ACC2 because it's a switch connection. My plan is, because remember, as I said, this unit, the DVR unit itself, is not waterproof. And while I don't ride a lot in the rain on this bike, I don't let it stop me either. And so I'm gonna let this thing live back here under this, under the seat, under the rear seat
or cowling cover in a waterproof Ziploc bag. So it should never be a problem, and I won't look at it while I'm riding anyway. I'll configure it how I want it for the two cameras, and just let it live back here. It'll come on and off. Never have to see it, forget it's there, because I can lock video from the handlebar control that I'm going to put on the bike, and all I have to do is just pop the rear seat off to get access to the SD card and the DVR box itself.
Now that we've got the DVR located in the tail section of the bike, the next step is going to be to route the camera wiring from the front of the bike back to the DVR box. I'm going to put it somewhere up here on the back of the instrument cluster. I haven't really decided where yet, but it'll go up here on the front of the bike, the camera will, and I'll have to route the wiring back down along the frame and to the back of the bike. It'll go down through the existing wiring cluster to the back of the bike. So to do that, there's plenty of videos online that will show you how to do this. To take these blade fairings off, and then a couple of bolts on the back of the gas tank, and some connections underneath to the fuel system, and it will just pop right off. Very, very simple working on these naked bikes, and KTM makes it easy.
Okay, taking the tank off this bike is about a 5-minute ordeal, maybe 10 minutes if you've never done it before. It's literally 4 little fairing bolts to get the blade fairings off, and then 2 bolts back here in the back that hold the back of the tank down. The front of the tank wedges into these little pivot points there, where there's a U that grabs into that, and the tank settles down and then bolts down in the back. So once you get the fuel line stuff disconnected, there's 4 disconnections down there that are pretty easy to do, all pretty obvious. You can't mix them up or mess them up. Once you get those disconnected, and then the tank just lifts right off. So now we've got a clear path to route from the front of the bike camera through the frame in the existing, alongside the existing wiring harness, and come on back here to where I'm going to keep my my DVR unit. The tennis ball was a special tool for taking the tank off. You prop the tank up in the back with it so that you can work in this area back here until you get everything disconnected. I've looked around at a lot of different places up here on the front of the bike. I originally thought I might try to mount it up here or here. I just think that makes the camera a little bit too conspicuous. So I found a nice spot right here that gives me a good angle to the front of the bike. It's on the back of the multifunction display, and it's just stuck on with dual-sided 3M tape. Very secure. I've got all the wire just laying here empty right now while I test this out and make sure this is the view that I want. So I'll power up the bike. I'll get the system to come on, and now you can see that I've got a pretty good unobstructed view. It's not getting any of the components of the bike. If I turned it down just a little bit, I might get a little bit of the little fairings around the headlight, you know, that sort of thing, if I wanted to get that context in the picture. But this looks like it's going to be a great place for it, and it keeps the camera almost completely hidden. You'd have to be really looking for it to see it up in there. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Now it's just a matter of running the wire down along the wiring harness, along the frame, tie wrapping it in, and coming back up to the DVR box. Okay, routing the camera cable. So I'm coming from here. You can see right down beside the clutch line. We're coming around down here inside the triple tree alongside the clutch line. I've got enough slack in it, so if I turn it full lock to the right, it's not going to strain my camera cable. From there, I've just routed it straight down on the inside of the frame through a place where some other wires are routed, all the way back. Here it is coming out right here, going back up tidy underneath some other wiring right in here. And right now I've just got it laying here before I tidy it up, going back the last foot into that compartment. That'll be easy to do. Okay, I've got the lock switch. This is it right here. I've got it mounted to this half of the clamshell of the cluster. So if I have to take the cluster apart, I'm not splitting the seam there. Got it set right here. Still easy for me to reach up and hit with a finger, my throttle finger. And now it's just a matter of bringing the wire down come down. In here, tie wrap to the same bundle as the lines from that switch cluster. Down inside, alongside this cable, tie wrap to that one. This is my line right here, going back to the back of the bike. I've run it down inside the frame, and I've got it laying loose back here. You can see it's plenty of cable to connect back to the box. So if I power the bike on now, okay, the unit comes on. It's on, and we can see we've got power to this unit by the blue light.
Alrighty, now it's time to start looking at how to install the rear camera. Eventually this bike is going to get a tail tidy on it. When it does, I'm going to put the camera up under the fairing back here where I'm pointing. But for now, since I have the OEM tail section on the bike, I'm going to mount it right on it and run the wiring for the camera right out through the wiring for the tail section. Alright, to get access to the wiring for the tail section, we're going to just remove this right here. There are 4 bolts here that you back out, and then the tail section just slides straight back out of the bike and exposes the place under that grommet where the wiring for the tail electrics come through, making space to run the camera wire.
Again, under the back seat here, there is a grommet right here that the tail light, tag light, and turn signal wiring goes through into the OEM tail section for the license plate. So what I've done to install it here is I've routed the camera cable. There is a hole right here in this plastic boom that the turn signals and license plate are attached to. So I push the camera cable up through that hole, and then up through the right here. That's the underside of that grommet, coming back up into the exact space that I want to keep the DVR box. So that's the routing for the wiring. Couldn't be neater. Should be relatively waterproof. If it was watertight before, it should be still watertight now. And I'll go ahead and move on to mounting the camera itself. Okay, now we're all done. The wiring and the system's completely installed. It's tidied up. The camera, again, is up here on the back of the instrument cluster, up here. Really have to look for it to see it if you walked up to the bike. I like things sort of covertly installed on the bike. Back here, I've got everything tidied up in the section under the rear seat. I'm gonna just lay this microfiber towel over it to pad it and fill in the gaps so that I don't get any vibration problems back there. And then back here in the back of the bike, I've got the rear camera installed right there on the license plate bracket with the cable running right up inside the bike and into that cavity under the back seat, alongside the wiring harness for the back of the bike electrics.
So now that we've got the system installed, let's go shoot some video.
Podcast.